Welcome back. Let's get you the latest from the IPL Mini Auction today. Throwing up two of the biggest buys ever in IPL history. And not surprisingly, it were the two Aussie pacers in Mitchell Starc and Pat Cummins that franchises broke the bank for. Now, in the ICC ODI World Cup recently, Starc had taken 10 wickets in 8 matches. Playing for RCB in IPL 2014, the left-arm quick emerged as amongst the leading wicket takers with 20 scalps. After the 2015 season, he took a break from IPL to manage his workload and international commitments. In 2018, Starc returned to the IPL, joining KKR. However, an unfortunate injury prevented him from making any appearances for the two-time champions. Now he's back with a bang. There's of course Pat Cummins on the other hand, who took the IPL by storm in 2020 when KKR secured his services for a whopping 15.5 crores, making him the most expensive overseas acquisition the league had seen at that time. Cummins lived up to the billing, picking up 12 wickets and contributing with the bat in the lower order, as we've seen him do recently as well. The 28-year-old started his 2021 IPL campaign with promise, spearheading the KKR pace attack with 9 wickets from 7 matches, but he pulled out of the UAE leg of the event because of the impending birth of his child and was subsequently not retained by the franchise for IPL 2022. So these two, of course, have stolen all the headlines. But let's also take a look at the top 10 buys of the day. Top of the charts, of course, KKR always going for the big pacers. They exactly knew what they wanted. They broke the bank for it and did not much else. 24.75 crores now is the top price for a player in the IPL auctions. Pat Cummins, he was the first one to set the stage scorching at 20.5 crores. Daryl Mitchell, the other star from the World Cup, from the Kiwis, he was backed by Chennai Super Kings for 14 crores and he also has another Kiwi partner. But before that, Harshal Patel, 11.75 crores went to the Punjab Kings side. Now, RCB were a little bit under the weather of sorts as far as this auction is concerned. They didn't really go for much. The one man they did go for was Joseph, and he has been bought. Alzari Joseph has been bought by the RCB for 11.5 crores. There is Samir Rizvi, won by the CSK for 8.4 crores. Rovman Powell was the first big buy of the day, going for 7.5 crores to Rajasthan Royals. So from a base price of 1 to 7.4, not a bad day at the office for him. Travis Head, the other Aussie who really set the stage alight as far as the World Cup final is concerned. A moderate price for him, not really breaking the bank. SRH, Sunrisers, bagging him for 6.8. Some would say this is a pretty good price for him. And there were other Indians who bagged top price as well. Shivam Mavi from the LSG went to LSG for 6.4 crores. Umesh Yadav has also gone to Gujarat Titans, who didn't really buy much today. We'll talk about them in just a bit, for 5.8 crores. The question we ask with our experts joining us in just a bit is just this: is the World Cup flavour still ruling the roost in the IPL auction? Let's go across to our guest joining us, Graeme Swann, former English cricketer, former World Cup expert here on CNN News 18. Also, Mike Hesson, IPL expert, Geo Cinema, is joining us. Mike, let me begin with you. Did you feel that there was clearly this World Cup flavour still hanging around, witnessed today in the auction?
Yeah, I think there's absolutely a recency bias to a degree, but it was also in Indian conditions, so it made sense. You know, previous World Cups when they weren't in India, that same recency bias was there, so at least that made some sense. Obviously, from an Australian perspective, we knew Cummins and Starc were going to go for plenty. You know, there wasn't too many other options, in that space. Travis Head was, you can't do much better than do what he did towards the back end of the World Cup. And Daryl Mitchell, he got that because of the 100 he got at Wankhede against India. Obviously very much in focus. So yeah, without doubt, that certainly played a part.
Graeme, what do you think? Clearly, the World Cup performance is still hanging heavy, although the franchises by now are extremely smart to not confuse the 50-over format to T20. But clearly, the Aussies were in great demand.
Absolutely. And also you have to take into account, especially with those big Aussie fast bowlers, there's not a lot else out there.
Yes.
And when there's only 2 of them and the franchise is desperate for fast bowlers, that's always going to happen. So it's no surprise that that the money's gone like that. To be fair, I feel for Pat Cummins a little bit because he breaks the record. He's the most expensive player ever, and then about an hour later, his mate does it straight back to him. So I've heard the Aussies have got a WhatsApp group. I'm surprised they can all type, to be honest, the Aussies. But there you go. And they're all ribbing them, saying you got to buy us dinner. I've never seen an Aussie put his hand in his pocket and buy food for anyone, but apparently those boys are going to do it now. So definite recency bias. Because of that World Cup. The only issue I have slightly is the fact that was a 50-over World Cup, and this is T20. But, there's a lot of very astute cricket minds in that auction room. There's one or two bits of emotion flying in as well. That's why the prices are going so high. But I think all the franchises will have done their homework. Not
such a great day for the English, isn't it? The Aussies are in great demand, not so much the English. That's also a recency factor.
That's right. You can pick an English player up in the bargain basement at the minute, can't you? They're like like when you're walking out of a petrol station. There's a basket at the end of all the rubbish that no one wants anymore, and all the England players
it's not that bad.
But they're of course. I mean, the showing that England put up at the World Cup was such that. I mean, the players, the guys who are, mid-contract, people like Josh Butler must be so relieved. At least he's got a gig next year. Some of the others will be looking over their shoulder thinking, I might not even have a county contract, let alone an IPL gig. So it's been a bad day so far. I mean, there's still one or two to go
two
up
of them.
The
there's, of course, Harry Brook, who had to whose price was adjusted by quite a bit. Chris Wokes also went for a decent price, but these were the only two really big names from the English team. Mike, you also see that all-rounders really do continue to be the most in demand. That's what we've seen, that pattern we've seen today as well.
Yeah, without doubt. I mean, it allows you to balance your squad, and from an overseas perspective, and even from a Harshal Patel perspective, that changes the whole shape of Punjab Kings. He's a 4-over bowler. He can bat at 8. It means they don't have to play either Ellis or Curran. Gives them a whole heap of options. So you add that to Starc, who can contribute with the bat towards the back end, as can Cummins, and they're high-value players. Whether they're 20, 24 and a half, crore is very much just based to supply and demand. And obviously we saw some extreme examples today.
Since I have you, I do have to begin by asking you about Bangalore. Now, they've not really done much as far as this auction is concerned. Only Alzari Joseph bought at 11.5. So strengthening their bowling, Yash Dayal bought for 5 crores. And then really nothing else. What do you make of their strategy? Mike.
Well, I think they were stuck. I mean, they obviously wanted Mitchell Starc. And as soon as Mitchell Starc came out on the 4th set, that changed everybody's method in terms of how they could go about it. So they had a good dip at Pat Cummins, obviously went to 20.25, which was as far as they could go. And he was probably their second best option. Then they realised that Gujarat and KKR could outbid them come towards the 4th set. So they had to pick someone. They were either going to go Lockie Ferguson or Alzari Joseph. But I do think that if they were going to go Alzari Joseph, they should have gone Shardul Thakur earlier on because they knew they could have had plenty of purse. Now they're a little bit stuck in terms of what their options are. So it was a difficult auction for RCB based on the auction order.
Yeah, let's talk about Delhi Capitals as well. Graeme, they've obviously got this big prospect of Rishabh Pant, coming back after his accident and playing for them, will continue to lead them. So that's a great plus for them. Other than that, Kumar Kushagra, they've bought Harry Brook, of course, for 4 crores. His price has adjusted. There's Rashik Salam for them. So, and Ricky Bhui. So not much, What did you make of Delhi's strategy, for example? Do you think they already have enough and didn't really need to do much?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't panic, put it that way, and they've got Stubbs and Brook there, and then the Indian players as well. So it was a fairly quiet auction. I think it was one of those auctions where they think they've got pretty much all their bases covered. They don't want to go out and splash huge money on a bowler that they don't necessarily need, don't want to get caught up in the emotion of it. So, Rishabh Pant is such a huge player for them. If he comes back, if and when he comes back fit and firing, he can build a team around him because he's so good with the gloves. He can captain and he can bat as well. What they need is one of these overseas players, Stubbs and Brook, to go in, hit the ground running, and be a superstar. I mean, Brook could turn out to be an absolute steal. He won't be the steal of the tournament because that is without doubt at CSK. Ravindra is unbelievably cheap.
Yes.
I cannot believe they've stolen him for such little money. But those are the sort of guys who are going to bat 3 or 4 for the franchise, who could easily have a stellar IPL, and then you can build a franchise team around those players. So yeah, it's been a fairly quiet day for Delhi, but you know, like I said, if there were 15 Australians who they could have bought, they probably would have done.
Mike, Sunrisers, you know, they've really done well. Would you reckon? What do you think their chances could be this season? They also are looking for a turnaround of sorts. So they got Pat Cummins, of course. They also backed Travis Head. So how do you look at their balance now?
Oh, I think SRH have had an outstanding auction. I think to get Hasaranga and Cummins, both can contribute with the bat as well as the ball. You know, Hasaranga might not play all the games. He might only play in conditions that suit where the ball might turn. And they've got the flexibility to do that at 1.5 crore. They've got the power of Travis Head at the top if they want to go down that path. It means that potentially Hayden Markram misses out. But they've got all bases covered. They've always had very strong Indian seamers with Bhuvi, Malik Natarajan. So that's never been an issue for them. They struggled with a wrist spinner. And the fact they've got Hasaranga, as I said, to come in, and he can bat as well. So they've got all bases covered. I think they've had an exceptional auction to date.
Yes, one of the other big surprises today was one, of course, Rachin Ravindra's price, 1.8 steal for Chennai, and then, of course, Hasaranga going only for his base price of 1.5. So another steal for Sunrisers. Mike, I do want to ask you about the other big team everybody's talking about, and that's Gujarat Titans. All eyes are on this team because of how strong they've been. They've lost Hardik Pandya, who's come back to Mumbai Indians, is their new captain. A lot going on there, but they've really only gone for, you know, somebody like Umesh Yadav and Omar Zai. So what do you reckon? How good are they looking to be able to bounce back from losing such a figure as Hardik Pandya?
Oh, I think they'll have some regrets. I think there's no doubt they will. I mean, Harshal Patel, you can't go that far and then pull out and leave the auction with the amount of money they're going to have left over. It's the same as Pat Cummins, as Mitchell Starc. Like 24.75 is a huge amount of money, but there's no point taking it with you at the end of the auction and not having, you know, a premier fast bowler. So I think they will have huge regrets. I mean, replacing Hardik Pandya is always going to be incredibly difficult. But they had options to do that so far in this auction. They haven't taken them.
What do you reckon, Graeme? You know, it's always tough, as Mike is saying, to lose somebody who's a talismanic captain, the future of Indian, you know, shorter format as well, Hardik Pandya, and then they seemed like they didn't know exactly what to do today.
Yeah, a little bit fuddled by the whole thing. Hess is actually so right there. There's no point being left with it all in your pocket. And yes, people might roll their eyes and think, oh, they've spent a lot on this player or that player. But once you've got the squad you need, regardless of how much you have to pay to get this player or that, it all balances out, and you have to walk away with the team and a squad that you're happy with. I can't think that Gujarat will be that happy at the moment. Maybe they've got an ace up their sleeve that we're not seeing. But, I mean, Pandya going back to Mumbai, Hardik, I mean, that is a huge loss because he has been, he's almost carried that franchise. His aura and his leadership has been spectacular since he's been at the Titans. So, yeah, I think they've had the worst day so far. Like I say, they may have an ace up their sleeve that we're not aware of yet, that we're not seeing in these names. But no one would have thought, you know, go back 2 years, no one would have ever given Gujarat a chance or a shot at that title.
Yes.
To be as good as they have been over 2 seasons is testament to the fact that they do know what they're doing. They have got some good cricketing brains at the helm. So I'm going to just sit on the fence a little bit with them and say, wait and see. But yeah, replacing Hardik, I think that's nigh on impossible at the minute. He is, especially in India, he is such a huge sort of burgeoning talent. He's just ready to step into Virat's shoes in a couple of years, I think.
Yes, it's not that they have a bad team. They've still got quite a bit of their purse left, to Mike's point, that where are you going to take this money to? But they've got, of course, the likes of Shubman Gill, they've got Tewatia, who can hit big, they've got Rashid Khan, Umesh Yadav they bought today, David Miller, they of course have Kane Williamson, Vidyaman Saha, and Omar Zai they bought today. And yeah, I mean, Shah Rukh Khan, who's this young talent we've been talking about in India for quite some time, they actually broke the bank the most for him at 7.4 crores. Even Umesh Yadav was at 5.8. So I guess you're, again, an all-rounder getting big bucks in the auction today. So Mike, put your coach, your consultant hat on. At this stage, from what we've seen so far, who's emerging the best from this auction? A mini auction, so not too many trades or changes going on, but a lot of big names still went under the hammer today.
I think SRH, I think CSK, and I think Mumbai with getting Kutsia and Madashankar for less than 10 crore. I think those are the three teams that have had a very good auction so far. And I think from a balance perspective, they've sort of balanced out the bat with the ball as well. So I think those three sides are probably the best balanced at this stage.
Graeme, what do you reckon as far as the balance of the teams is concerned?
I think Hesson's hit the nail on the head there. Sunrisers have had an exceptional auction. The one team I am going to mention, you probably know who it is Rajasthan as well. Just quietly getting Dubey to Rajasthan. He was exceptionally good last year at CSK. Exceptionally talented at smashing spinners. Some of the pitches they play on, the low, slow wickets, will suit him. And they've got Rovman Powell, who I believe is the next Karen Pollard. He's sort of Karen Pollard in waiting. So they could have had a good auction. But yeah, Sunrisers for me have had an exceptional day. They've spent a lot of money, yes, but the key has hit the nail on the head earlier. Getting Hasaranga as well as Cummins. All of a sudden, the balance in their squad looks exceptional.
Yeah, but we know from past experience, Swann, that it's not enough to have the team on paper. I mean, Bangalore is a classic example of that.
Absolutely. I mean, if it was down to the team on paper, England would be World Cup champions, but they finished bottom.
You're still on that.
So, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's all about who's and what's and who will at the minute. But on paper today, Sunrisers will be
very happy,
clinking their champagne glasses together tonight.
Absolutely.
Well,
thanks a lot, both of you, Graeme Swann and Mike Hesson, for joining us here. And of course, do watch the auction live on Jio Cinema. It's time for me to take your leave.